The movie starts with two police officers driving through a thick jungle on a routine patrol. As they're making their way down the road, something unusual catches their eye. They stop the car and get out to take a closer look. As they approach the strange sight, they discover a young girl lying lifeless on the ground. She isn't wearing any clothes, and her body is covered in mud and leaves. It's clear to them that something terrible has happened. Without wasting any time, the officers contact their station to report what they've found and request backup to secure the crime scene. The scene then jumps forward 5 years. Now, we're inside a cozy house where a family is gathered around the breakfast table. The father, Gordon, is sitting with his wife and son, David, as they enjoy their morning meal. Gordon looks at David and asks him how things have been going at school lately. David smiles and responds, telling his dad that everything is fine, and he's keeping up with his studies. Next, we see David at basketball practice, working hard as he prepares for an upcoming tournament. The gym is filled with the sound of sneakers squeaking against the floor and basketballs bouncing as David and his teammates push themselves to improve. He's focused, determined to do his best for the big game. Later that night, the scene shifts to David's home. Gordon, his father, is in his study, busy working on some new designs. He seems completely absorbed in his work, sketching ideas and planning details. In the kitchen, his wife Kate is preparing dinner, humming softly as she cooks. The house is calm and peaceful, with the comforting sounds of family life in the background. As David finishes up his basketball practice, the sun has already set, and it's time for him to head home. He grabs his gear, wipes the sweat from his forehead, and starts getting ready to leave. Just as he's about to go, his girlfriend shows up at the basketball court. She walks up to him with a playful smile, and before long, they're wrapped in each other's arms, stealing a quiet moment together. They share a passionate kiss, completely lost in each other, unaware of the time or the world around them. David, caught up in the moment with his girlfriend, suddenly realizes just how late it's gotten. His heart races as he grabs his bag and rushes to get home, knowing his parents must be worried. He sprints through the streets, trying to make up for lost time, but on his way, tragedy strikes. A speeding car hits David with a violent force, and the driver, without even stopping, flees the scene. The sound of screeching tires and shattering glass fills the air as David lies still on the cold pavement. Soon after, David is rushed to the hospital, but despite the doctor's efforts, it's too late. His life slips away, and the news no parent ever wants to hear is delivered. Gordon and Kate receive a call from the hospital, the devastating words echoing in their ears, "David is gone." Their world comes crashing down. The shock of losing their only son, their pride and joy, sends them into a deep, unbearable sorrow. Kate breaks down, unable to stop the flood of tears, while Gordon's grief slowly turns into anger. The driver who killed their son ran away, and Gordon's thoughts darken with the desire for justice, or revenge. At David's funeral, the air is heavy with sadness. Friends, family, and neighbors gather to pay their respects, but the pain in Gordon and Kate's eyes is unmistakable. Gordon, unable to contain his grief, turns to drinking, trying to numb the emptiness inside him. As he stands alone, drink in hand, lost in his misery, a doctor from the hospital approaches him. The doctor gently offers his condolences, understanding the overwhelming grief Gordon is going through. "I know this pain is unimaginable," the doctor says softly, "but there's something that might help." He hands Gordon a small card and continues, "I run a therapy group downtown. We meet regularly to help people who are struggling with loss. It won't bring David back, but it might help you find a way to heal, even if just a little. You're always welcome." The words barely reach Gordon, who's still drowning in his sorrow and rage, but he tucks the card into his pocket as the doctor walks away, leaving Gordon to wrestle with his overwhelming need for justice and his unbearable grief. After the funeral, Gordon goes to the police station, desperate to find out who is responsible for his son David's death. He asks the officer if there's any new information on the driver who caused the accident. But the officer tells him there's nothing yet, no evidence has been found, and they're still searching. This frustrates Gordon, who was hoping for answers, but he leaves without making a scene. When he gets home, he finds his wife, Kate, still grieving heavily. She's crying, and the pain between them feels unbearable. They try to comfort each other, but the grief makes everything harder. As they embrace, Kate accidentally scratches Gordon, causing a small injury. Frustrated, Gordon pulls away and walks off, feeling more alone than ever. In the kitchen, Gordon grabs a bottle of alcohol, hoping to calm his anger. But after taking a few drinks, the frustration builds up, and in a sudden rage, he throws the bottle down, breaking glasses and dishes around him. The sound echoes through the house, but it doesn't ease his pain. The next day, Gordon tries to return to work. He sits at his desk, but everything feels pointless. His mind is filled with thoughts of David, and the grief is too much to handle. Realizing he can't focus, he remembers the group therapy session the doctor mentioned during the funeral. Feeling like he has no other choice, Gordon decides to go. He heads downtown, hoping that the group might help him find some way to deal with his overwhelming sorrow. Gordon attends the group therapy session and listens as other people share their stories about losing loved ones in car accidents. Everyone talks about their pain and how hard it is to move on, but speaking about it seems to help them feel a little better. Dr. Hobson is there, guiding this session and listening closely to everyone. When it's Gordon's turn, he takes a deep breath and shares his story about losing his son David. He explains that the worst part for him is that if the driver had stopped to help David after hitting him, maybe David could have survived. But instead, the driver just ran away, leaving David to die. Gordon's anger and sadness are clear as he talks, and the group listens quietly. Dr. Hobson offers some words of support and asks Gordon to come back next week, saying that talking more could help him deal with his grief. Gordon agrees but still feels weighed down by anger and loss. Later that evening, Gordon goes to a bar to drink, trying to escape his feelings for a while. As he sits there, he notices a group of drunk truck drivers laughing and having a good time. Their loud behavior reminds Gordon of the driver who killed his son, and his anger starts building up again. Unable to control his rage, Gordon gets up and confronts the truck drivers. He starts a fight, hitting them hard as his anger takes over. The bar staff call the police, and Gordon is arrested for beating the men. Now sitting in a jail cell, Gordon realizes how far his grief and anger have pushed him. With no other choice, he calls Dr. Hobson for help. The doctor comes to bail him out and tells Gordon that he needs more help to deal with his pain before it leads to even more trouble. Gordon arrives home after Dr. Hobson drops him off, finding his wife already asleep. He gently kisses her and lies down beside her, trying to find some peace. The next day, he goes to work but feels overwhelmed by anxiety, so he takes some pills to calm himself before heading to the police station to check on his son's case. At the police station, Gordon becomes frustrated when the officers tell him the case is still open with no new leads. Furious and heartbroken, he raises his voice, causing a scene before storming out. When he returns home, he finds his wife, Kate, in a fragile mental state, asking him if the police have caught the person who killed their son. Gordon, unable to give her any good news, tells her to calm down and wait, though his own patience is running thin. The following week, Gordon attends another therapy session with Dr. Hobson and the rest of the group. Everyone is there to share their struggles, but something unusual happens during the meeting. Michael, one of the group members, arrives late with bruises all over his face. Gordon notices this and finds it strange. Dr. Hobson quickly ends the session to take care of Michael, leaving Gordon and Karen, another group member, feeling unsettled. After the session, Gordon and Karen head to a nearby coffee shop. They talk about Michael's injuries and how odd the whole situation seemed. While they're talking, Karen gets a call from Dr. Hobson, who explains that Michael got into a fight at a bar and is now recovering. Karen decides to head home, but Gordon realizes he left his jacket at the session and returns to get it. When he gets back, Gordon sees something suspicious. Antonio, another group member, is taking Michael somewhere. This unexpected sight raises questions in Gordon's mind, leaving him wondering what is really going on with the group members and whether there's more to Michael's story than he's been told. The next day, Gordon and Antonio meet up at a bar. While they're there, Gordon casually questions Antonio about what happened to Michael. Antonio brushes it off, saying Michael got into a fight but is fine now. As they step outside, Gordon brings up the fact that he saw Antonio and Michael the night before. Antonio, visibly shaken, asks if Gordon saw anything suspicious, but Gordon lies, saying it was too dark to make anything out. Antonio relaxes, and Gordon says they'll catch up at the group meeting tomorrow before heading home. At the following therapy session, things take a darker turn. Dr. Hobson opens up about his own personal tragedy, how his only daughter was brutally murdered. He then drops a bombshell, revealing that he tracked down her killers and murdered them, dumping their bodies into the sea. The revelation stuns Gordon, but what comes next is even more shocking. Karen, another group member, shares how the group helped her get revenge on the person responsible for her husband's death. She explains that Dr. Hobson and the group not only provided emotional support but also assisted in planning her revenge. Antonio follows by telling Gordon about how the group helped him avenge his wife's killer, doing research and setting up everything he needed to carry out the act. Then Michael, still bruised from the recent fight, confesses that last week, the group helped him locate his boyfriend's murderer. With their guidance, Michael tracked the man down and beat him to death, finding his own twisted sense of justice since the police did nothing to help. The group, united by grief and anger, had made it their mission to take matters into their own hands, believing the law wasn't doing enough to protect victims or punish criminals. Finally, Dr. Hobson turns to Gordon, telling him that they've already found the truck driver who killed his son, David. Gordon is speechless as Hobson reveals the details of the man's identity and whereabouts. The group waits for Gordon's decision, whether or not he will follow through with their method of justice. Later that night, Gordon leaves the session, his mind racing. He grapples with the weight of the decision he must make. Should he take revenge for his son's death, or is there another way? The next day, after hours of contemplation, Gordon returns to the group and, with a heavy heart, announces that he has made his decision. He will join them in killing the truck driver who took his son from him. Together, Gordon and Antonio begin planning. They meticulously work out how to catch the truck driver at his most vulnerable, setting up the perfect opportunity to strike. Gordon is filled with rage, grief, and a desire for vengeance, but as the plan unfolds, the lines between justice and revenge blur. One day, the truck driver goes to a liquor store. Dr. Hobson follows him and asks for a lighter. After the truck driver gets back to his car and drives away, Karen parks her car in his path and pretends it's broken. The truck driver stops to help, and they start pushing the car to jumpstart it. While they're doing this, Gordon and Antonio sneak up and kidnap the truck driver. They take him to a secret location where they tie him up in a dark room and beat him severely. Later, the group shares their own stories of loss and how getting revenge helped them cope. They offer their support and condolences to Gordon. Gordon returns to the truck driver, beats him again, and demands he confess to killing his son. The truck driver admits it was an accident and pleads for mercy, showing Gordon a picture of his own family. Moved by the driver's plea, Gordon decides not to kill him and leaves. Gordon goes home and tells his wife, Kate, that he found the killer but couldn't bring himself to kill him. Kate insists on seeing the truck driver. Gordon takes her to the secret location. Kate says she wants to deal with the truck driver herself. She goes to where the driver was tied up, not knowing he has already freed himself. The truck driver attacks Kate, escapes, and runs into the jungle. Gordon and Antonio chase after him while Karen and Dr. Hobson attend to Kate, who has been injured. Gordon catches up with the truck driver and kills him. Gordon returns to the cabin and tells Kate that he has killed their son's murderer. The movie ends with Gordon and Kate grappling with the aftermath of their actions. Remember to subscribe and turn on notifications, so you can watch more movies like this. Thanks for watching.